everybody, Sven Diesel here. We're going to be tying up a bead-like body bugger. Basically I tied up a jig little bugger with just tungsten beads for the body, and it was too heavy for everybody, so I'm trying to recreate that. We've got an ML056 jig hook in the vise. This is a size 12. We also got a 3.0 metallic bead. These are both made by or sold by Moonlit Fly Fishing. We're going to be using a black, this is a Semperfli Waxed thread and an 8/0, and I'll go ahead and just start my thread right here behind the bead, build up a little bit of a thread down behind this bead so it sits properly, so we don't have to worry about that later. And then I'll work my way back to the down the shank to the bend of the hook and proceed to snip it off and end it where the barb would be. This is a barbless hook, and we're going to be using just some strung Marabou for the tail. And this stuff tends to be pretty flowy, and the tips need to be a little bit sparse. And so a little trick I learned by watching a lot of YouTube videos is a way to cut this is to use your scissors. I believe it's by Tightline Productions. He had a little trick of using this so that you don't you can even out the tips and make it look the same for all your buggers. Kind of a neat little trick, and so I give him credit for that. At least that's where I saw it. So I'm going to go ahead and place this here at the bend of the hook, give a couple wraps to tie it in, and then we'll work our way up the shank, kind of check where it's at, and then we'll proceed till about a wrap or two before the where we build up our thread dam, snip it out at an angle. And I want to cut it out at an angle so that it's a little less material right there behind the beak, because we're going to be tying off a few things. And then I'll proceed to just clean up this shank by using some thread wraps, trying to keep that Marabou on the top of the shank. And we'll check it out. It looks pretty good. And now we're going to be using some Whiting Farms bugger pack. These are really nice for tying buggers. They're awesome, stiff, and basically you get what you pay for. These are designed specifically for this, and you get a bugger to each feather, maybe if you were more careful with it, but I just don't cut off the tip. I just tie it in. I leave a little bit of gap so that we can orient our feathers, and then on this one's just going to be a little long, so I'll just snip that out and then work my way up, and with some nice tight wraps securing that to the shank, and then work our way back to the bend again where we tied in the tail. Now with all my buggers I put down a little super glue or Zap-A-Gap. I'm just going to apply a little bit here, let it soak in before I proceed to get out my dubbing. That way it's penetrated into the shank and it's got a good bond. And now we're going to grab some of this. This is Frankendub's dubbing. It's his Nymph dub, and I believe he produces this himself. It's kind of nice. I really like it for a lot of purposes, but I'm just going to grab it sparsely on this first little bit and dub a nice little thin noodle, a little bit thinner at the towards the hook, so that we'll be able to taper in this to form a uniform body, because it will be visible, and we want to make sure that we keep it uniform all the way up. Now the reason we're doing a dub body is we want to make this body look bead-like, like I did with my tungsten bead body, but this one will be able to be easier to cast, and you don't have to, be just like a regular heavy nymph. But we've got our body there nice and uniform, and here's how we're going to create our beads. I've got about 10 to 15 fibers of blue flash here, and what I did is I divided it in two, so I've got about 5-6 fibers here. I'm basically just going to divide it in half, bend it around my thread, and then go ahead and secure it on my side of the shank with a couple wraps, making sure it's nice and secure. And it should be flowing backwards with the way we did three wraps afterwards. And I'll just do one more, get my thread out of the way. Now make sure you don't tangle up your thread in your flash. It's a little difficult to do, but just make a little focus that you're not going to grab all that extra flash or your feather. And we're going to do the same thing to the other side. We're going to grab about 5 to 7 strands of that blue flash, and I'm just going to fold it in half on the thread and make sure that we just do it the exact same as the other side. And we'll secure this in with the same 3 to 4 wraps right there between the bead and the flash. And don't let go of it, and don't pull it too hard or it will crinkle up on you. But basically I want that to go down the side of the shank on the opposing side, and then the material that was facing us before on my side. And I'm going to rib down the body of this bugger down the shank, creating little humps. You can see it helps to keep the flash a little bit tight. And then I'll do a couple wraps here at the rear, and then I will inspect it. It looks like it walked just a tad bit on me. I don't want to pull it using the flash too much because it will cause it to crinkle up on me, but making sure it goes down the other side, I'll go ahead and trim it so it's the same length as the Marabou tail. And you could leave it a little bit longer if you want, but we've got some flash in the tail now. We've got those humps, and I'll go ahead and rib back up it, really kind of with some securing wraps to create more of a dimple effect, so that it looks or appears from the side profile I've got some beads. And then here's the real trick: getting your marabou or your bugger, your hackle feather, out of all these tail fibers. And that's the real trick. And sometimes it just gets caught up in there, but everything's secure. We put down some Zap-A-Gap, and so I'm not going to pull this feather out, but it will go ahead and orient those flash fibers as I do my first couple wraps. And I usually do about 2 here, just so that I can make sure the feathers, the hackle fibers, are going the way I want it. And then I will proceed to jump over on the underneath side to the dimple, so that it's on the side. This feather stem is going in the dimples on both sides. And we'll proceed to go up just like we would a bugger, using those dimples as our points of ribbing this. And then I'll go ahead and do 2 or 3 full circles right here between the bead and our tie-off point, just to build up a nice little collar on this. So it helps push a little bit of water and gives it a nice little profile in the water. And we'll go ahead and tie off this feather with some wraps behind and in front, and snip out our stem as careful as we can not to lose all of our work. Now, for the sole purpose of not ruining those bead-like flash, I'm not going to counter rib this with any wire or tippet. It just didn't seem to produce an effective bead-like presence, and so that's the fly. You can basically use that flash to match your bead, or use it as a different color to create more of a type larva. I'm not sure. I just really like how this appears, and I bet you the fish will too. And so we'll go ahead, and I always put a little bit of resin right there in the slotted hole, and it also helps secure the thread and the hackle fiber, and solidifies it, makes it a little bit more durable. So that hackle is epoxied in, resined in at the head. It's super glued in at the back. We've got everything secure. It's a nice weighted fly, runs jig style, so it should be a hook point up. Thanks for watching. Try some out in different colors and fish it.